Hi, this evening I'm going to do my sixth presentation on the deep state and in the mommy wars. Sorry. And so my first video, it got into conversation between Tucker Carlson and Steve Bannon about the current geopolitical situation and how we need to get rid of the deep state. So of course, I'm like, well, of course, okay, who and what is the deep state? Is what I covered in my second one, which got into Paul Seigart's The Lawful Rights of Mankind. I'll go into that a little bit more in this one, because what I really want everybody to think about there with his work is, you know, you have your official rules, you have your written rules, whether it be the Bible, the Quran, the Torah. I mean, of course, this is getting into international conventions, which I keep on showing your secular human rights movement is just a repeat of the religious human rights movement. With all good intentions, and yeah, you read the words and you go by the words, that's fine, but when you get into the implementations of mankind, that's where you get problems, which I'll get into more here. This got in the third one was on managerialism and good governance, 3 branches of government. And then in the fourth one, I got into a bit with the domestic violence, violence against women, and I've been working on it as human rights violations. And, you know, violence against anybody, or, you know, it can be violence, any kind of violation of your rights. It doesn't matter if you're a man, woman, or child. You know, if it's human rights, it's human rights. And I'll get into again here, are we animals or are we Homo sapiens? Are we humans? And what makes us human? So the fifth one, I kind of, with the Epstein thing in the news, I, you know, covered that, and, you know, Trump's reaction to it, and just the disastrous way that's been handled, because that what's important about that case is not, you know, yes, it's the sugar babies. This is a culture that we need to get rid of. But what is really important there is how the cover up, you know, I'll get into now, back into the cases, the Ghislaine Maxwell, that's in the news. You know, I said, what are you people doing, you know, with the Ghislaine Maxwell? It was particularly Prince Andrew, because the allegation with him, it was just the Virginia goof rate, to my knowledge, and she was 17, and this was in New York. Supposedly happened in any alleged events didn't happen in New York, they happened elsewhere. Well, then you wouldn't have standing or cause. So I'll get into that. But that, you know, brought all of that into the news. So I went into that because it is applicable with the violence against women. So today, as I say, I wanted to get into the cultural norms, which is, again, focusing on, with Paul Seigart and the Lawful Rights of Mankind, you know, your official rules versus society's rules. And who is it who injects society, it injects rules into society and sets the standards are women, which I'll show in here. This gets into UN reports that clearly shows it's women who maintain the norms, customs. Women traditionally, children are always raised under the religion of the mother because she is the one who raises the kids and imparts the standards and the morals and you know, that's where we've had a real problem with the feminist movement and women's movement into the workforce in mass, which I don't really like to say because poor women have always had to work and they always wanted to get a meal ticket husband, a good provider, um, so they could stay home and take care of their kids in the house and, you know, cook. I mean, the lucky ones had maids, you know, to do when I was lucky, like in Bogota, yeah, I had a maid to do the cleaning. I greatly appreciated it, but not always. And if I have to do it, I do it. The cooking I loved. Couldn't get enough of it. Um, I can't even get a job. I'm too good. Okay, so we'll get into that here. So the first, let's look at what is culture, because this is just, you know, the everybody and their grandmother is using this. All of the different groups, you know, use it to defend undefensible behavior. You know, bullying, and I don't care how you dress, how you talk, what color your skin is, you know, what country you're from, any of that. When you are a bitch or an SOB, it's across the board. You know, there are nice people and there are not nice people. And so people who are using, you know, any kind of inappropriate behavior and disrespectful behavior towards others as either, well, it's just cultural, you know, it's just in my culture we do it that way. Yeah, some people do it that way and some people don't. I mean, as I say, I've known, you know, people from every walk of life. I mean, one of my favorite was the the wife of the Indian ambassador in Bogota. She was the my next door neighbor in the apartment, the Torre, next to me. And the first woman, I mean, I guess it was the Indian embassy that had that apartment, because when the new people came, when the new ambassador came in, that's where they moved into. But the first woman, I mean, she was such a delight, so nice. Um, you know, just, and I've known Indian people like that. Oh my Lord, the second one, so pretentious. Well, I was never invited over, but I was more than happy not to have been. Very, very pretentious and just, you know, every single culture, you got two faces. And also, all of them who are putting out a bad face when they are in other countries or in other communities are ambassadors and are representing, I mean, good face and bad face. You know, so this whole thing of, well, you just misunderstood because it's a cultural difference. I'm like, nah, okay. Like, pick your poison. What are you talking about in the world? Let's get into this. You know, and then they get tongue tied because I've known people and cultures from everywhere in the world. I mean, I've got stories you know, how you know wonderfully I integrated and a little bit too wonderfully sometimes. But anyway, um, you know, nobody can pull that out of me. So let's see what this guy.
Across America, kids are struggling in the classroom. No matter our politics, we all agree our children deserve better. So our nation's governors came together from both sides of the aisle to chart a path forward for our schools. Join the conversation.
Join the conversation.
What is culture? Okay. Basic anthropological definition. What is culture? Think about it. What is culture? I'm telling you, man, it's one of those words that everyone knows what it is, but if I go, hey, what is culture? You go, you know, it's like culture. It's like cultural, right? Think about it for a second. What do you think of when you think of the word culture? What comes in your head? And a lot of times I think it's things like different kinds of foods, different kinds of dress, different kinds of languages, right? We think of these things, and all those things, those are true. Those are part of culture. But I usually use at first a very just cold definition of culture, of which there's plenty. But let's go with culture is traditions and customs that govern behavior and beliefs, distinctly human, and transmitted through learning, right? There's three parts there to that definition. Traditions and customs that govern behavior and beliefs, that's the first part. Distinctly human, that's the second part. Transmitted through learning, that's the third part. All right, let's break this down. So the first part, traditions and customs that govern behavior and beliefs. There's a million ways to say this, and that's the stuff that we think of when we think of culture, right? Traditions and customs. Right? Different cultures have these different traditions. Okay,
I'm going to leave it there because also I get, pegged by YouTube as copyright violations if I play too much of that. I still don't know all of the rules there. So, but as he said, traditions and customs and are brought, from generation to generation. Now, this one really annoyed me because we shouldn't be, why is this? Oh, there. We shouldn't be monetizing. Focusing here.
Here with Anna from New Engine, and I have one big question for you. The culture. We hear that word going around so much. What does it mean to you, and how are brands leveraging the culture?
Culture to me, and especially at New Engine, is understanding the people, different demographics, how people move, human behavior, why we do what we do. There's a cultural currency out there that a lot of brands talk about, which I think is important, as long as it's authentic. Because sometimes, right, when we talk about culture and monetizing it, cultural currency, if you're able to pinpoint and define the culture, sometimes that's not culture. So think about that. It has to be authentic.
That is a takeaway. Thank you so much, Anna.
Yeah, well, monetize from cult. I mean, that whole, there's so much wrong there in so many different ways. So here's another, what is culture?
What is culture? Of course, it involves national, regional, provincial, and community identities. It creates artifacts we can experience, like language, art, fashion, food, stories, and literature. But it is much more than that. Culture gives us our framing for the way we see and experience the world. It dictates meaning into things like our gestures, facial expressions, body language, and personal space. It creates the connotation behind tones of voice, volumes of speech, and our experience and emotion of colors. But yet it is also deeper than that. It defines our concepts, like, what does it look like to be respectful or polite? How to be a good friend, a good student?
Respectful, polite, a good friend. Not a backstabbing witch.
Or how a teacher should teach.
Oh, how a teacher should teach, and not indoctrinate their students with wacko crazy, gender dysphoria.
What form of leader would I follow? And for that matter, what kind of follower should I be? Or should I follow at all?
should you follow? I mean, everybody wants to be a leader. Everybody wants to be a leader. Yet everybody's a follower in some sort of cult. There are no leaders, there's only followers, but it's really, I mean, it really is of epidemic proportions and pathological in American society, and the rest of the world's following suit.
Culture defines how late is too late and what reasons are good enough reasons.
How late is too late? My favorite story. And explaining to expatriates about entertaining. What time do you tell people? I told people, oh, well, in Bogota, let's see, I have one time for the Americans, we didn't have too many coming over. My husband didn't like hanging out with Americans. Well, most of them were pretty obnoxious. So anyway, so like for the French, they're pretty much on time. The Spanish, they'll be a little bit late, but you know, not much than 30 minutes late. I mean, that's pushing it. Now, the Colombians from Bogota, oh, they might be there 2 hours. Kind of had to know your guest. Some might even show up 3 hours. So you adjusted your time. So you would give, if it was, say you want 8 o'clock, or, you know, 9 o'clock, because 8 o'clock's early for Bogota. So let's say 9 o'clock for dinner. So you tell the French, 9 o'clock. You tell the Spaniards, 8:30. You tell the Colombians, 7:30, and they'll look at you and say, well, okay, 8 o'clock, and you hope they're there by 9. Yeah, so what on time, too late, that's very relative, very relative.
How do you build trust? What roles in life do parents and their children play? And at what age does what sort of responsibility set in? And yet culture goes deeper. It helps us to shape our versions of right and wrong. It creates our biases for and against. It builds our expectations around what should and shouldn't happen in any given context. It is often the answer to many of the human condition's why questions. In short, culture underpins everything we experience in life. No two people experience culture in exactly the same way their whole life. Culture is fluid. The more we interact.
Yeah, so, I mean, well, totally agreement or understanding there. But yeah, so basically that's, I agree with, all of these slides are posted if you want to, you know, watch these things in their entirety. They're there. So this one I love, because I have to admit, the Kennedy Center, they've gone real woke. I mean, but it's also, it's not just their fault. It's also the World Bank. The World Bank's right near there, and the IMF, the World Bank, IMF, they do the exact same things for their spring and annual meetings. And Elon Musk is not just the American federal government that needs to be looked at in terms of what they're spending all over the place, because it's obscene, absolutely obscene. But check this out. And hey, I'm the first to appreciate a good, you know, drag queen show. But, you know, like there's time and place, and also, yeah, there are other things in this world.
But we are here to protest the hostile takeover of our National Arts Center, the Kennedy Center.
Far too long, and the bravery it takes to pull this event together.
Takeover of the Kennedys. Okay. So anyway,
And everything will be revealed.
Melania with her hat so nobody can see her face. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that just cracked me up. Because I mean, my Lord, I've been back 17 years and everybody, I'm like, come on, I go to the demonstration. I mean, I've had it going to the demonstrations, but something like that. You know, this is the thing. I've been working for 17 years, clean up their courts. They're handing over children to pedophiles. Oh, because it's the father. Well, yeah, no, I'm sorry. So somebody banging and banging and banging. So here, there's another video.
Join the conversation as governors from both parties come together to improve education for our kids.
Governors.
Hey there, geographers, and welcome back to the Mr. Sin channel. Today we're starting Unit 3 of AP Human Geography. This unit is going to be going into different types of religions, cultures, we're going to be looking at diffusion and the cultural landscape, and much more. Now for this video, we're starting our conversation with Unit 3, Topic 1. We're going to begin into an introduction to culture. Okay, before we get started though, what I want you to do is take 10 seconds, or if you need a little bit more time, you can pause the video. Answer these two questions. Number 1, what is culture? And 2, what is your culture? Alright, time's up. Was it harder to answer than you thought it was going to be? Culture can be really difficult for us to pinpoint, especially when we're talking about our own culture. But we can see that culture can be broken up into two main categories. We have material culture and we also have the non-material culture. Our material culture is items and objects that we give value and have importance to. Things that we're wearing, that we're using, that we purchase. Things that either we or society have put on kind of a pedestal. We see it as more important than other objects. While non-material culture, on the other hand, focuses on our ideas and our belief. For example, in your own life, how do you celebrate milestones? How do you celebrate holidays or big life events? What do you do when someone gets a new job or is having a baby or is getting married? These are all non-material culture, and some of it is unique to us and our families, and others are shared practices with the society we live in.
But what I'd like you to think about here, because I'll be getting into this, because this gets into, you know, how the culture is translating into your economies. This is your social institutions determine your commercial institutions, as well as your political institutions. Because I think that's in here. In previous slides, I had shown really how the feminist movement and the movement of women out of the home and out of the, which has moved them from the community and those social institutions, have left a void, and that, you know, they're like being liberated by moving into the workforce in the commercial and political institutions, but they're not. And it's having a detriment to society. But here, how all of these different, you know, cultural, whether it be birthdays, you sell candles, you have a baby. Oh, babies cost a lot of money. Ask any parent.
Culture is so much more than just holidays that we celebrate, things we buy or wear. Here, let me show you. For this next part of the video, what I want you to do is answer the following questions. I'm going to be listing off a bunch of different questions. And what I want you to do is think about where you live. Maybe it's a city, maybe it's a town, but answer the questions for your specific home. This way you can start to see, well, what's the culture of your area? Every single place in the world has unique culture, and that shapes us, and we shape our environment. The first thing I want you to think about is, does your city have public transportation? Is it widely used? If not, how are people getting around your city? What type of buildings are in your city? What type of homes do people have? Is your architecture more modern? Do you have a busy downtown? Are you in an urban location or more of a rural location? How is the land used in your city? How do people in your society interact? Are people interacting more through technology or in person? What languages are spoken? What clothes are in style? What music is popular? What religions are prominent within your society? What people or items are put on display? What food do people eat? How does your society rank and categorize people? What type of government do you have? When do children become adults? What gender roles exist in your society? What is allowed in your city and what isn't allowed? What does your city spend money on? What type of money is used? What does the money even look like? What social norms does your society have? And what jobs are offered in your society? All those questions you just thought about to help actually define the culture that you have for your own society. The culture that is shaped by us. And we, in return, shape the culture. It's hard to pinpoint. We can see that our culture is...
Yeah, so I'll leave it there, but that's the point. You know, this is translating into all sorts of goods and services, and of course this has to be governed, it has to be organized and managed by somebody, and that's the government, and well, in private sectors. So again, you have the political and the commercial institutions that are produced, and without the social institutions, you know, it's a free-for-all, it's a mess. So this I thought was very interesting. I won't play the whole thing because I've got a lot of material to go through. And I want it to go on.
Behind every BP fill-up, thousands of people across America go to work every day. They're part of almost 300,000 jobs we support across the country. Just a few of the ways BP is investing in America.
It's Wayfair's biggest sale of the season. For 5 days only, get up to 80% off everything home during Wayfair's Black Friday.
One nation is how the United States refers to itself, but in reality, this isn't correct. In fact, within the United States, there are 12 competing regions that have their own cultures, values, and priorities. And these regions really act more like independent nations under a single flag. So what are the 12 nations of America? The United States has long been viewed as a single nation, a union of states under one flag and one constitution. But beneath the surface lies something deeper. America isn't one nation, it's 12. I'm not the first person to notice this either. Journalist Colin Woodard originally proposed 11 American nations in his book, American Nations. But what I've done is expanded his nations to reflect two major changes: the inclusion of Hawaii as its own unique nation, and the creation of a Spanish Caribbean nation that includes both southern Florida and Puerto Rico, both areas that are distinct from the nearby regions. So with that said, let's get to the nations. If you were to look at a cultural map of the United States, you'd see something very different from the one you learned in school. Instead of state lines, you'd see 12 fluid, overlapping territories stretching across traditional borders and sometimes even national ones. But for this video, we're going to focus just on the nations within the United States, starting in the Northeast. Rooted in New England and stretching into upstate New York, Michigan, Wisconsin, and parts of Minnesota is the nation of Yankeedom. On a map, it hugs the northeastern part of the US and most of the Great Lakes. Centered around New York City and parts of northern New Jersey and the Hudson Valley is the nation of New Netherlands. Moving south in central Pennsylvania and heading westward across Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, and parts of Iowa and Missouri is the Midlands. Found along the Chesapeake Bay in eastern Virginia and parts of Maryland and North Carolina is the nation of Tidewater. It resembles the remnant of old colonies along the Atlantic. West of Tidewater is Greater Appalachia, a broad, rugged band that stretches from the hills of western Pennsylvania down through West Virginia, eastern Kentucky and Tennessee, into Arkansas and parts of Texas. Moving south once more and dominating much of Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, and parts of Louisiana and Texas is the Deep South. In the far south and consisting of southern Florida, especially Miami, and Puerto Rico, is the Spanish Caribbean nation. Tucked in between the Gulf of Mexico and the Deep South nation is the nation of New France. Moving westward, spanning from Southern California and Arizona across New Mexico and into West Texas, is the nation of El Norte. North of El Norte and covering a vast swath of interior California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, parts of western Texas and the Dakotas, and much of mainland Alaska is the Far West Nation. In the far north and west is the left coast, a narrow but powerful strip along the Pacific, stretching from the San Francisco Bay Area up through Portland and Seattle and into the Alaska archipelago. And finally, thousands of miles away from the mainland is the nation of Hawaii. These 12 nations have different politics, cultures, values, and social trends, and they don't follow state boundaries, which were often arbitrarily made at the time and didn't really factor in how actual cultures might develop. For this reason, the American nations expand beyond.
Yeah, so as I say, that's a really interesting video to watch. I mean, first off, all of the people who have been spending, is it over $1 trillion now in the past 30 years have been wasted on federal election campaigns. They might want to take a look at this video and learn something. I mean, everybody, all of these experts know nothing. I mean, it makes my blood boil when I start looking at, these campaigns and, RFK Jr. That's just, I mean, I could write a book. And I included in my book. Oh, Lord, I mean, you talk about everything that you shouldn't do. An election campaign. This is why I'm like, wait a second. Are all of you guys just stupid? I mean, and Amanda, his daughter-in-law, no, sorry, I said Amanda. It's Amaryllis Fox, Kennedy. I mean, okay, all of you conspiracy theorists, why don't you check into this one? Is she a CIA agent? And because this is her third husband. She's bagged herself a Kennedy. Yeah, okay, I get it. That was Bobby Kennedy's problem with his 3 marriages. And a big problem within the Kennedy family and with everybody. I mean, it's not just the Kennedys. But I think it might be more than just some gold digger. Look at where they met. So, yeah, that's, anybody wants like CIA conspiracy stuff, that's somebody they should look into. Okay, so on to the next slide. So this, well, I'm going to play a bit of this. I'll jump forward because this...
Recycling is more than sorting bottles.
Right.
It's steel-toe boots, second shifts, machines roaring back to life.
This episode of The Y-Files is brought to you by The Y-Files Operation Podcast. Deep dives and longer stories every week. Humans are the apex predator. Not an apex predator, the apex predator. There's no animal on Earth that is stronger, more intelligent, or more adaptable than Homo sapiens. But telling the human story from the beginning is difficult. It was a time when 2 words defined our world: fear and violence. It was a time when we were not the apex predator. We were their prey. We emerged from our caves during the day, hoping we wouldn't be hunted by the monsters in the woods. So vicious were these monsters, they still live in our myths and our nightmares. They created a generational trauma embedded into our DNA over hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. These creatures were stronger, faster, and when it came to combat, more intelligent than we were. It's a miracle any of us are even here. This is the story of how modern humans conquered the monsters and won the battle for the world. But here's the thing, those fearsome monsters defeated by humans were other humans.
Join the conversation.
So these are the Neanderthals. And oh my Lord, it's yeah, he does a very, I really like how he, it's AJ Gentile, and he does, I like how he looks at all of these different, UFO stuff, all of these different things, and then, okay, the evidence, and he usually debunks it, but it's very interesting. But this is, in this he points out, I mean, very well done, kind of gruesome sometimes, but that the Neanderthals, yeah, they killed the men and raped the women. And that's why we have so many people in the world with Neanderthal DNA, but that also this DNA has been helpful, and just it's interesting to look at this one, but also all of his stuff. But then, of course, this gets into thinking, well, okay, so are we, because we have this whole Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde stuff going on in our societies?
Many wonder how atrocities such as the Holocaust, the mass killings under Mao, the Cambodian killing fields, and the Rwandan genocide could have taken place. How could humans, who are your neighbours one day, good on the surface, civilized, turn into dictators and murderers the next? This is the terror at the heart of Robert Louis Stevenson's 1886 novella Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The fact that we are all capable of committing the grossest, most heinous crimes against humanity because it is part of our humanity. Our nature contains terrifying violent impulses, and society is bustling with individuals who appear civilized on the surface but harbour dark desires. In addition to seeing Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde as an exploration and anxiety of the split within oneself, angel on one side, fiend on the other, to use Dr. Jekyll's own words, I also see it as a tale about the horrors of drug addiction. Let's explore both ideas, beginning with the conception of the tale. Many believe that real-life events inspired Stevenson's story. In the spring of 1878, Stevenson's friend Eugene Chantrel was convicted of killing his wife with opium. Before her death, he took out a large life insurance policy on her, and after his hanging, many believed him to have poisoned many more victims. Perhaps fearing the story to be too horrific, too close to life, Stevenson burned his manuscript. Then, in a cocaine-fueled frenzy, he rewrote the story in 3 days. And thank God he did, because the tale has endured for over a century. There have been countless film and stage adaptations, TV shows inspired by the story, heavy metal songs, musicals, graphic novels, and even video games. The phrase has entered common parlance due to its proliferation in pop culture. Even people who have never read the story speak of feeling like Jekyll and Hyde, to indicate that one moment they feel like a good wholesome human being, the next they feel like some evil monster. But despite Jekyll himself asserting that man is not truly one but truly two, and recognizing the primitive duality of man, perhaps this idea of a split is too simplistic. Vladimir Nabokov, the author of Lolita, argues that there aren't two personalities. There isn't Jekyll and Hyde, but rather Dr. Jekyll, who, being both good and evil, has a small percentage of the pure evil that is Hyde. Then there is Hyde, who is wholly evil, smaller than Jekyll, more compact, fitting within him like a Russian doll. Then there is Hyde, with a small amount of Jekyll residue left over. If this makes your head spin, don't worry, it's supposed to. Put simply, some days we are only a small percentage of evil, other days our darker impulses are closer to full capacity. Most days, we're a blend of the two, never wholly good, never wholly bad, but always in a state of tension between the two polar opposites. Jekyll picks up on this constant battle between good and evil when he says it was the curse of mankind that these incongruous faggots were thus bound together, that in the agonized womb of consciousness, these polar twins should be continuously struggling. The fact that Hyde wants to change back to Jekyll, and Jekyll yearns for the freedom to indulge the evil pleasures of Hyde, is significant. We are not witnessing a complete metamorphosis, with a good man transforming into an evil one, but rather we are seeing the evil already inside Dr. Jekyll, brought to the surface by his drug of choice. By the end of the story, we see that the figure we call Jekyll has now split into another entity and considers Jekyll and Hyde as both separate from him. In this way, Stevenson anticipates the foundational theories of Freudian psychoanalysis. Dr. Jekyll is the ego.
I wanted to get to the Freud part. Yes, well, see, the Freud picks up on this. Everybody picks up on this. Hollywood, we'll see Hollywood here, but it is this. It's a constant theme that you'll see, and this is not just Victorian era. I mean, this is applicable. We are in a Victorian era paradigm of that. But this good and evil, I mean, heaven and hell. Some people might have heard of those things. So that has been a theme that's been around a long time throughout. This is why it was like, it does this really gets back into something and primitive and this is really why what separates us from being different from the animals. Our culture. Okay, what's our culture? The way we dress and eat and yeah, I mean, none of the other animals prepare food. They don't make their clothes. There's a lot of, and where do these traditions come from? I mean, this is the women invented the recipes, and the culinary traditions, clothing also, that has traditionally been women's work. All of these different things, women's work. Well, that has produced the trappings of culture, if you will. But let's go back to the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, because it's not just the men. We got the ladies in there.
Margot, nothing you've ever done has made me as happy as you're taking Eve in. I'm so happy you're happy.
Now look here, you haven't been running a settlement house exactly. The kid has earned her way. You had a pretty mixed up inventory when she took over. Merchandise laying all over the shop.
You got Margot mixed up with a 5 and 10 cent store.
Make it Bergdorf Goodman. Everything on his proper shelf, Max, all done up in little ribbons. I could die right now and nobody'd be confused. How about you, Max?
How about me what?
Suppose you drop dead. What about your inventory?
I ain't going to drop dead. Not with the heat.
This is the most ghoulish conversation. Thank you.
Nothing really.
Max! Mon vieux! Fifi!
The kid, Junior that is, will be down in a minute unless you'd like to take her drink up to her.
I can get a fresh one. Karen, you're a Gibson girl.
Thank you.
The general atmosphere is very Macbethish. What has or is about to happen?
What is he talking about?
Macbeth.
We know you. We've seen you like this before. Is it over or is it just beginning? Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night.
Oui, c'est la chose la plus
Mademoiselle, je vous remercie infiniment pour l'invitation.
Enchanté to you, too. I distinctly remember Addison crossing you off my guest list. What are you doing here?
Dear Margot, you were an unforgettable Peter Pan. You must play it again soon. You remember Miss Caswell?
I do not. How do you do?
We've never met. Maybe that's why.
Miss Caswell is an
That's Marilyn Monroe.
actress, a graduate of the Copacabana School of Dramatic Art. Ah, Eve.
Good evening, Mr. DeWitt.
I had no idea you two knew each other.
This must be at long last our formal introduction.
So yeah, this is all about Eve. This is a classic. If any of these kids out here haven't ever heard of it, you should see it. It is very much a classic, and it's applicable today. The young woman who comes in and backstabs the backstabber. And at first I didn't recognize Marilyn Monroe, but that's Marilyn Monroe, 1950. She wasn't the lead. Betty Davis was the lead. And I forget, oh gosh. Who is that? I forget. Oh. So, okay. Yeah, but see, it's the backstabbing witchery. We'll see, where is that? Let's see. Where am I? my slides. Is this yet? Oh no, that's not the one. Here's the one. The backstabbing witchery. That's, of course, my focus is with feminists, anti-feminists, and socialites. Yeah, it's mainly women. Although you do have socialite men, but mainly women. So this, I highly, highly recommend people to watch. It's Joe Rogan interview with Bernie Sanders. What's important in this video, what I wanted to highlight in this video, is Bernie Sanders comes, his speech on what we got to do to make the world better and the country better and fix everything and, produce this socialist utopia. And Joe Rogan is kind of like, well, what are all of these people supposed to be doing with all of this wonderful free time you're going to have in this utopia you're going to have where even if you don't work, you're provided for? What is everybody going to do? And that became at this point with our public debt, it's the $36 trillion question. But listen to the beginning.
Why does the United States pay higher drug prices than other countries? Because America's the only country in the world weighed down with 340B hospital markup.
Yeah, well, it's also
Joe Rogan Podcast, check it out.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan Podcast by night, all day.
Mr. Sanders, great to see you.
Good to be with you, Joe.
Great to be. You've got a bunch of notes.
Not all that much.
Have you prepared for this?
I am all prepared.
Well, it's a good time for you to be in here because the world's gone haywire.
Yes.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on this?
I think I start off with, Joe, trying to take a deep breath and doing what is not often done. Where are we as a country today? What's going well? What's not going well? And I don't think we don't have that kind of basic discussion. And to my mind, I think in America today we are facing more serious crises than we have in the modern history of our country. This is a pivotal moment in American history, and what happens now will determine the lives of our kids and future generations.
Join the conversation as governors from both parties come together to improve education for our kids.
What specifically concerns you?
I'll tell you what concerns me, the issue of wealth and power. All right, I'm kind of old-fashioned and I believe in democracy. And I believe that everybody should have a good shot at living a decent life. And what I worry about right now, and this is an issue, Joe, and it's part of the problem, that it just ain't talked about very much. And I applaud, by the way, you and the other podcasters who give people the time to really seriously discuss things rather than 7-second sound bites, But if you take a look at where we are as a nation today, the system is not working, it's broken. It ain't working for ordinary human beings. So you have in America today where we have more income and wealth inequality than we've ever had in the history of this country. That's just a fact. You have...
I won't go into all of this, listen, but it's just, Bernie, that merry-go-round's been going around and around and around and around since the 60s, since you were young. Yeah, you might want to think about getting off. I mean, bless his heart. Again, culture, that's food, if you want to put it down to three basic things, how we eat. I mean, we don't like, like animals were taught to, you have certain etiquette. Well, with the Asians, they have the chopsticks, but you have all of these different etiquette. Where does the fork go? Where does the knife go? If it's a solid fork, the soup spoon, the different sizes, how to set a table properly. If you're doing invitations for the parties, because of course we're going to serve the food, you need to have that looking like civilized people. and not like a bunch of animals who are being brought to the trough to, just chow down. Quite often in the restaurant business, you realize how uncivilized people actually are. In fact, let's see. We'll start with how the restaurant business was invented.
I ordered 200 hand-forged knives to my dorm room and built a Wix website to sell them.
Lord.
I'm Noah Rosen, founder and owner of Forged to Table Knives.
Oh.
I'm Alex Berman, and you're watching Selling Breakdowns. In most major cities, you can sit down to different meals from all over the world. We take it for granted that you can eat sushi in Paris, burritos in Chicago, and a burger in Nairobi. But one of the most surprising things about the business of dining out is that it's...
I mean, kids these days, I remember where you couldn't get sushi in Paris. Well, maybe in the really, really expensive restaurants, but it was not something common.
Surprisingly new one. Sure, you've always been able to buy cooked food, but the concept of a restaurant is only about 200 years old. And the man who really started the boom was Georges Auguste Escoffier from France. I mean, where else do you think the godfather of the restaurant business would come from? Today we're going to look at the innovations Escoffier brought into cooking and dining, and also examine why restaurants are often said to be the hardest business of all. The word restaurant means restorative, and likely refers to rich broth soups that would restore people's energy and health. There's a claim in France that the first restaurant appeared in 1765, run by a Mr. Boulanger, but there's no actual evidence for it. Here's what we do know. Many people in the cities wouldn't have had their own kitchen, and would have either bought cooked meats from the inns and taverns or whatever was available from street vendors. In cities like Paris, there were strict guilds and rules, so a vendor would have been forbidden from selling a range of foods. For the aristocracy, the fine dining was mostly found in the great mansions and palaces, or in hotels. However, after the French Revolution, at the end of the 18th century, many of these aristocrats took a trip to the guillotine. Before Escoffier, being a chef was not a very attractive job. You were still a servant, the kitchens were hot, and it was pretty dangerous. And for diners, the few restaurants that existed were chaotic. Food would be inconsistent, and dishes would come out in a very haphazard order. Escoffier had been learning the business since he was 13, and after a 7-year stretch in the army, he opened his own restaurant in Cannes. But it was in 1884, when he moved to Monte Carlo, that he began to change the industry forever. He ran the kitchen for the new Grand Hotel, owned by legendary hotelier Cesar Ritz. Here, Escoffier introduced the brigade system. This is where all the chef names come from. Chef de partie, who's in charge of the pastry, saucier, who does the sauces, commis, a line cook, who's often a young chef learning each station. By splitting it up this way, like a manufacturing plant, it was possible to know how long each dish took, and the chefs on that section would be focused on just a few steps, so they could perfect the process and be consistent. Escoffier also introduced the hat and scarf to keep sweat out of the food, as well as banning smoking and drinking that were pretty common in kitchens at the time. His greatest impact was not in Paris, but when he moved to the Carlton Hotel in London. The English restaurant scene was almost non-existent, since the aristocracy had stayed in place and kept employing the great chefs in the private houses. Escoffier changed all of that, and was the first person to ever offer an a la carte menu in Britain. The World Wars limited the growth of dining in the first half of the 20th century, but from the 60s onward, there'd been no looking back. And most traditional chefs' training is still based around Escoffier's cooking manual, Le Guide Culinaire. Despite all Escoffier's help, the restaurant business is still very hard. Around a quarter of new restaurants fail in the first year, and about 60% fail within 3. And it's because there are a lot of factors going against you as a restaurateur. You need a lot of capital at startup, and if you don't start strong, then you'll never build the word of mouth that you need to build up some steam and keep the restaurant going. Another major challenge is stock management. If you're cooking fresh food, that has a very limited lifespan, so you can't make big savings by buying in huge bulk, because you'll have to throw a lot of it away. What's more, a lot of your stock is paid on delivery, so cash flow can be a major headache. For first-timers, the biggest mistake is the idea of following your dream and offering food that you would like, or your dream courses. This is a major mistake in restaurants. That dream almost certainly doesn't match what the market wants or is ready for. You might want to have a rock and roll themed ramen bar, but does your neighborhood?
Yeah, so that was, this is how the restaurant business, as it's known, really started. Of course, like we'll see with Anthony Bourdain in Spain, and what's his name?
welcome the enchanted, seldom visited wonderland of Asturias. That's in Spain, if you didn't know. And of course, because it's Spain, I did not come here alone.
What I loved about Anthony Bourdain was, I mean, I can't stand the reality shows, but his cooking shows, it was like street food. It was food. It wasn't that, you know, the post French Revolution aristocracy food that was being promoted. That's gone totally, you know, that has become as much in vogue since the 1960s or 50s as the fast food, you know, the McDonald's and all of this crap food that has no nutritional value whatsoever, and the processed food. And I mean, the food industry on both those ends have just become horrible. Then we got the whole vegan crap going on in there. All of that has to stop. A healthy, this kind of food, you know, people food.
I came here with a good friend, great chef. He's a complicated man. Nobody understands him but his woman. And I'm not talking about John Shaft. Shut your mouth. I'm talking about Jose Andres.
Yeah, another beer. Why? Shit, Anthony's waiting.
Only chef in the history of America ever to be sued by a sitting president. So proud of him.
I took a walk through this beautiful world. Felt the cool rain on my shoulder. Found something good in this beautiful world. I felt the rain getting colder.
We don't understand that life only starts at the edge of the unknown. That's when life starts. Asturias to Catalonia, from Catalonia to Madrid. Then I landed in America. I've been in the States more than 26 years of my life. More than half of my life I've been there. I think everybody should be always finding the place they come from. Asturias, I left when I was 5. A lot of people will not have a lot of memories before 5, but I do have them. And me, I always feel in Spain like so proud I am Spaniard. That's why for me coming back here is to understanding that yes, I'm from here, but I have to work hard to belong.
¿Cantamos Asturias, patria querida? Asturias, patria querida.
I'm gonna get to the food.
Arvejos, which is the green peas. And right now is the season. And they love these green peas here in season. And they serve them with ham.
Oh, this looks amazing.
Arvejos. It's perfect.
Women.
Everybody says that Asturias has the best croquetas anywhere in Spain. Even everybody can argue.
Really? Everybody says that?
Everybody, especially the people in Asturias.
Yeah, I would guess.
You see how creamy? Good taste. Mussels. Perfect. They make a great steak done with blue cheese, right on top. Cabrales on top of the steak. It's kind of the sauce happens right on the plate.
Okay.
It's amazing. ¿Tienes queso entero? Sí, posible. Tráemelo entero, corre. Un par de cortes.
So you want the whole cheese to spoon?
Yeah, it's heavy, huh? It's heavy. Is it spicy?
Oh, no, I like spicy.
¿Eh? No, habla un poco, coño.
Jose.
I love all the opinions. Everybody is highly opinionated, as it should be. And nobody's going to agree with anybody, only because why to agree?
Any place where people argue about food is a good place.
Okay. Yeah, see, this is...
Allá en la mina. It's a hot day today.
All of Spain and all of, I mean, just the different culinary traditions. I mean, all through Europe, but even through the United States. I mean, every place. I mean, South America, any place you go in the world, you'll find, you know, the home cooking, which, I mean, okay, let's say I how shall I put it? When I see particularly the pastries and all of the beauty, the art of it, yes. But the base, you know, when push comes to shove, it's how does it taste? And don't be pretentious. I mean, this is the problem. It's become so pretentious. I mean, Jose Andres, don't get me started on Jose Andres. Yeah, because he's from Spain, and I mean, he is the typical. Well, one of the first job that I applied for when I got the States in 2009 was a job working for him in a restaurant here. It was half the time in the office, half the time as a hostess. I was like, oh, great, that'll get my foot in the door. And yeah, manage. I mean, I speak fluent French and Spanish. I mean, I know as much about French and Spanish cuisine as he does, and as any of the other chefs. You know, I started as a sous chef. They had the picture when I was a child, in my mother's kitchen. Jose Andres, he even said, you know, he has no training. He didn't even finish school. I think he doesn't know anything about business. Yet, look at the empire he's built. Why? Because of favoritism for somebody like him. And he discriminates against me. Oh, I've applied for that job several times. There's been a revolving door for that job and lots of jobs I've seen working for him. So I'm like, okay, if we want to find out where the problematic restaurants are, just look at, you know, their revolving door of employees. And as in the video on the restaurant business, this is a high or low profit business. You cannot afford to waste money and be wasteful and bad management. And I mean, the restaurant business in Washington, I've been back in it since 2016 after they threw me out of the IMF for the second time and even blacklisted me from their spring and annual meetings because they don't like what I have to say, because it's the truth and they know it and they're scared. Well, I'm like, okay, fine. I just get a job next door to where you guys lunch, or next door to you where you guys go to lunch, and I give you my elevator speech there. You want to marginalize me? I'll stick you in my face. I mean, everybody else, yeah, I agree, Tucker Carlson. I would love to leave. If I had a couple $1 million and could leave, I would. Unfortunately, somebody's got to stick around and stand up to everybody. So another area that is our, you know, an expression of our culture is in the way that we dress. You know, I would say is as important and as varied and different as our, you know, food preparation and even the etiquette in eating. I mean, okay, everybody agrees you don't shove food down your throat. Well, gosh, yeah, the Americans. That's one of the most embarrassing traditions I think I've seen of the Americans, and really, it's something that we should discourage. This like, who can eat like the most hot dogs or whatever in you know 5 minutes or whatever. I mean that's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. It's unhealthy. There's no reason for it.
Join the conversation as governors from both parties come together to improve education for our kids.
They're a little further. What's the other I got there? Favorite back to the space, the thing you could get. If your antidepressants weren't working, you could get antidepressant enhancement. I said, what are they doing? You couldn't. Before you couldn't even.
You made your first mark in fashion for the wide lapel ties. I look at the suit, one man to another, and I see a wide lapel.
Well, you know, this is second time around, really. This got narrow and then it got wider again.
Yeah.
But your lapels are okay.
Yes, I
do very
no,
well.
no one has ever given me a fashion award, Ralph, and perhaps never will. Let me talk about the beginning, though. Growing up in the Bronx. And the influence of your parents, how did they shape you? And was there anything there back in those years, a place in America that's very tough these days, that you looked and can cite as where you might have seen the Ralph Lauren who exists today?
Well, you know, it's if I had to paint America, it's what I grew up in the days of rock and roll.
Yeah.
I remember Earth Angel coming out and the beginning of really rock and roll and leather jackets and kids doing, you know, the Elvis, and so my period was an interesting period. The area in the Bronx was my house.
Why HD transfers? Unlike our competitors, we require no setup fees, no weeding,
It was right next door to the schoolyard. I'd look out the window, see who's playing basketball, you know, and I played baseball across the park. So mine was a very sort of the last of a breed. And sometimes I look at my kids and I say, I think they missed something that I had that at the time didn't know was great. But
what is it they might have missed?
I think there's a sort of freedom, especially in New York, that was great, and a sense of openness, being able to go out roller skating at night, you know, 10 o'clock at night, or bike riding, or I just think the world was a little simpler, a little more magical. There were more heroes, more things to think about.
People always want to come see the garage, and I thought it was an interesting time to do something different. And I love cars, and I think cars are the art, and I think that the clothes.
Okay, so yeah, Ralph Lauren first, clothing, that's a woman's domain, women's work. And so he buys cars with everything that he makes. Whereas if it was women who were making the clothes, they're buying food for their children, you know, education, the basics. So that's where it comes in, I guess, into our economics. Although Ralph Lauren, you know, okay, granted, he does have lots of money, but, and maybe, but he believe me, he's not. Let's see, he's got his ranch out in Telluride, Colorado. I know that because my sister, she got her start as a celebrity chef for the stars in Telluride. This would have been in 85, 86, 87. And she always used to complain because she said she was on retainer for him. And she would complain because she said, yeah, but when he's not in town, he only pays me half the half the salary or whatever, the stipends. And, then I can't accept catering jobs elsewhere. I said, well, get a partner or hire somebody. Then if he comes in town, you send him on to do the job. If you can't be there yourself, but don't let that, stop you. Yeah, no, it's too much work. This is too much work. Yeah. She told me one time I would never own a restaurant because it's too much work. I'm like, yeah. Yeah, in Foxcroft, that charges $70,000 a year now for the students. Yeah, my sister didn't need a diploma from you nor BU to become a cook. So, this whole thing of these are jobs that women have been doing for thousands of years, and now they've been taken over by corporations, by men, by men have been grilling meat for thousands of years. Yeah, but it is women who did more than just throw a piece of meat on the fire. It was the women. So all of these women's work, you're stupid because you're doing women's work. Well, there are a lot of people who've been doing women's work now in the managerial revolution of the industrial age for a long time. But then they degrade us. And I mean, this is where it's like the feminist movement, no, they haven't been about liberating women. They've just been about getting women in positions of power, as we will see. Yes, as one of my favorite. So let's go. So this just briefly goes into the Middle Ages, because before we were prehistoric, and it was, oh gosh, the Neanderthals, apparently they had a fat factory. I saw an article recently. So it was a fat factory, and they would take bones and crush the bones and then like boil it and make, I don't know, some sort of paste or gel, or I don't know how it would come out, but something that would conserve itself, like jerky. And they could take with them and eat, because the Neanderthals, one of the problems that they had was that they needed a lot of calories, lots and lots of calories. And I think they ate mainly, their diet was mainly meat. Not only humans. Like scary thought, gross. So it's, well, okay, these are different species, sort of, but they do mate, so they are, yeah, sort of the same. But anyway, that's really gross. But yeah, so like, oh, that must not have been very palatable. Like they didn't sit down and say, how tasty. I like them. So anyway, yeah, so we've gotten past the prehistoric time, and people are starting to develop culinary traditions, as well as, not just putting on a bunch of dead skins over your body to keep you warm, and starting to develop clothing or more than a sack, as in the Roman times, the Jesus Christ, that you just kind of put over you, or drape some sheet, a toga over you. So this is where we're getting into more of the development of an empire. Creates instability. That's really good. So this is when we have the Islamic expansion. The Viking invasion in the north. territories, and here they're getting Islamic. Was it an empire? Kind of. The West was in its dark ages, developing sciences. Then, of course, Catholics, Christians come and they get rid of the infidels. And so that's where the West starts developing all of these weapons. Kill more people that way. And we can invade more territories. And we can get their goals and, you know, their different foods. I mean, the spices, they went more to India for that. Your spices and your herbs and stuff are pretty much the same across the Mediterranean. A little. Not much. So, and of course, look at that, you know, luxury, developing of luxury goods. Clothing, they started, everybody wanted finer and finer clothing. They wanted nicer clothing. So they went to the east for the spices, for the silk, you know, different materials. And that's where your commerce was produced. I mean, most of the commerce at the time, it wasn't steel or trading airplanes, of course, they didn't exist. So it really was, you know, motivated by just clothing, food, making your basic diets and way of dressing, and just a little bit more luxurious of a lifestyle. That's what went on. And then you get into the Renaissance after the Middle Ages, as you saw, and here you have, you know, the great.
The Renaissance. We're talking about a period of European history mainly taking place in Italy from the 14th to the 16th century, bridging the gap between the Middle Ages and modern-day civilization. The word Renaissance means rebirth, in this case the rebirth of the classical Greek and Roman arts and philosophy, following the Middle Ages, an era often branded as a time of war, cultural decline, and pandemics such as the...
But see, all of these again, all of this culture that's developing and interconnecting and you know, through the wars, then they start sleeping with the women here, and then they start inbreeding. So you had all of this conflict that is bringing people together and pulling them apart. But for example, wars are getting dangerous, more and more dangerous. So they're building armor. So that develops your steel industry. I mean, I don't know if they made it steel when that was, you know, but all of your different metals industry, that's when that, you know, you have a need that's fulfilled by commerce that was created by a culture of war. And always wanting, you know, oh, I'm going to bring these fine fabrics to this woman that I'm wooing, and, you know, or for the some festivities or something you needed, you know, they have some new modern technology. So that's where your commerce is coming in, and, you know, it becomes much more refined at this point in history, in the Renaissance. I mean, all you have to do, Leonardo da Vinci.
Like that. Humanism was really at the heart of the Renaissance, a philosophy inspired by classical Greek and Roman texts celebrating human creativity, individual achievement in different fields, and promoting the idea that man was the center of his own universe, not God. This new mindset contrasted with medieval philosophy, which centered on the divine and on following the rules set forth by the Catholic Church as God's plan. The Renaissance started in Florence, Italy, which became very wealthy thanks to trade with the Ottoman Empire, the biggest economic power in the region. Theories accounting for the origins of the Renaissance include the reintroduction of classical texts to Italy through the immigration of scholars following the fall of Constantinople, and through returning crusaders who had encountered advanced Muslim civilizations that had kept copies and translations. Also, members of the powerful and wealthy Medici family of Florence were famous backers of the movement and supported public art for recognition, for the love of beauty, and also to legitimize their wealth. The movement
the finery gave them, they could be even very, very lowly beginnings, but it gave them the trappings and the appearance of respectability. And that's what really has remained in the mindset, in the psyche of people and consumers, luxury, and no matter what you do, it'll make you respectable.
Later expanded to other Italian city-states such as Venice, Milan, Rome, and then throughout Western and Northern Europe by scholars such as Dutch philosopher Erasmus. Thanks to the development of printing by Gutenberg in Europe, little-known texts from early humanist authors such as Petrarch were distributed to the masses as literature rose as an important aspect of everyday life.
Now, this was a revolution with the printing press that, I would say it was as much a revolution as the internet today, because it really did. I mean, if it hadn't been for the printing press and Benjamin Franklin, the American Revolution probably wouldn't have happened. And this really is where you start with the Bible being printed out and distributed everywhere. That's kind of, excuse me, promoted sort of with some pushback, because then, oh Lord, if they can read the thing, then what do we need the priests for? Which is eventually what happened. So, this was another development of producing a lot of economic activity from culture, because up until this time, you had writing, but most for the general population, they didn't read or write, and it was through storytelling. For thousands of years, that's how it was, same stories were passed down from one generation to another. So this starts in where you're putting it down on paper and distributing to the general population, which
Dante's Divine Comedy
has gone off the charts. And then we throw in the internet, and now everybody is illiterate.
Machiavelli's Prince and Shakespeare's Hamlet were some of the most notable pieces of literature of the Renaissance. Perhaps.
Yeah. And okay, so I'll just leave it there. But, Machiavelli and Hamlet, all of Shakespeare. Why have Shakespeare's plays been, rewritten and redone? I don't know how many times by playwrights and authors, because it is a theme that repeats and repeats and repeats, just like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So again, this is the same paradigm, the same paradigm, the same paradigm. So let's see, Joe Rogan was going into a lot of this stuff in here.
Why does the United States pay higher drug prices than other countries? Because America's the only country in the world weighed down with three...
Okay, we're going to get it again.
Why does the United States pay higher drug prices than other countries? Because America's the only country in the world...
The Joe Rogan Experience. It's kind of stunning spoken when you see how little England is.
Yeah.
It makes sense what you're talking about with pirates, that they had to be the most horrific monsters to try to control the empire.
Well, it's also
John Paul Jones was considered a pirate by the British.
insane. By the way, so I did this special in Spain. So I love history. So Do you know what year they finally unified Spain, where they got rid of the Moors, and the Castilians kind of pieced together what we consider modern day Spain? Do you know what year they did that?
No.
1492.
Oh.
The year that Columbus. So they literally finally kicked the Moors out. By the way,
And they started their expansion.
They were really
their
not
empire.
nice.
The Moors are evil people.
Well, no, they were not nice to the Moors or the Jews.
The Moors, though, they were conquerors themselves.
They were
too,
conquerors,
right?
but
everybody was back then.
But
right?
I performed in Morocco. It's like amazing to think that we think of the colonizers as these Europeans, but the Arabs were so the Moroccans that were in Spain were part of, when Muhammad and all these guys rose up, the great Arab power was they took over and they got all the way into Spain and stuff like that. But it's insane to think that, this was a joke that I had when I went to Spain. Like, Spain took all the gold from Central and South America, all of it. So there wasn't really that much gold in North America. There was gold in Central and South America, and Spain took it all, and they spent it. And so one of my jokes when I was in Spain, I'm like, where's the gold? Where is it? You guys, they literally...
Oh gosh, we're going to have to go through that again. Part of it ended up in Russia. This was my ex-husband. One of his grandfathers, Barcelona, he was an anarchist and he was in the Spanish Civil War. And they traded some gold for guns with Russia. And in fact, he couldn't, while Franco was alive, he couldn't go back to Spain because they were looking for him because of that. He had been the captain of the ship or something. Oh gosh.
Join the conversation as governors from both parties come together to improve education for our kids.
Oh. Some stuff just costs more, except airfare. Find cheaper flights this summer on Kayak. Download now.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
I performed in Morocco. It's amazing. Moroccans that were in Spain were part of, when Muhammad and all these guys rose up, the great Arab power was they took over and they got all the way into Spain and stuff like that. But it's insane to think that, this was a joke that I had when I went to Spain. Spain took all the gold.
Sorry. Okay.
Under the thumb of a ruthless dictator like they did, back in the day, in this part of the world or that part of the world. That's been the standard way that human beings have governed forever.
Yeah, the Romans were like, we're good. No one's going to take over.
Yeah, come on, we got it.
Yeah.
The Greeks the same way. They started with democracy.
Yeah.
Right? And it all fucking fell apart.
The Romans were so confident. They're like, Constantine's like, you know what? I don't even want to do Rome anymore. Let's go over to what's present day Istanbul. He switched the capital of Rome. That's insane. It's kind of like if a president was like, you know what? I think our capital should now be in, let's now put it in Vancouver.
Phoenix.
Yeah. In a different country.
Right. It's
this
wild.
Roman Empire, it was named after a city, Rome, and he moved it to, essentially Asia. It's insane.
Why did he go there?
I think that
Chicks?
I think that was modern, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know. Dan Carlin would know.
Yeah, he'd be the guy to ask.
How does that guy know so much? He's just consuming books.
Yeah, well, he works.
So this Dan Carlin, I was like, who's that? No, but he apparently, I was looking, has some interesting stuff. I'll have to check him out. But somebody who does some research, I'm like, yeah, of course I'll check him out. So let's see. This I love with Joe Rogan. It cracks me up.
This happens at the end of every civilization's reign. And I think this happened with the Greeks and it happened with the Romans. And it's one of the things that Douglas Murray, when I had him on my podcast, was discussing. He said one of the things that happens at the end of civilizations is they become obsessed with gender. It's a thing that happens where men start becoming women and women start becoming men, and it becomes like a big focus, like cross-dressing and all this stuff becomes a big point of focus. And I was like, well, why is that? He goes, it seems to be that they're dissolving all boundaries and all norms and all societal structure, and that's a part of it. It's like gender roles.
Yeah, this is an issue, and we got to reverse it. Now, here, I was like, I wonder if Joe Rogan ever interviewed Nancy Pelosi. I would love to see that interview. Joe Rogan, if you're listening, that would be too funny. But, this is what came up.
Did you see Nancy Pelosi defend insider trading?
What? What'd you say?
We're a free market economy. They should be able to participate in that.
Have you ever seen a person look more nervous?
We have a responsibility to report in the stock, on the stock, but I'm not familiar with that.
She's giving this like very simplistic, almost vague answer. Should you be allowed to participate in the stock market when you're influencing the direction of the stock?
But if people aren't reporting, they should be.
Or when you know which direction something's going to go in, or when you're going to pass a law to benefit these businesses that's going to force the stock to go up. And you know that, so you invest a ton of money before it happens.
Because this is a free market and people...
That seems like it's a problem.
Yeah, slightly. There's another one I loved.
Have you ever seen that video?
No.
Pull that video up, because it's one of my favorites.
Nationalism, populism is a very dangerous threat to democracy, not just in America, but in the whole world.
Before COVID, intelligence services colluded with big tech to have Trump suspended off Twitter. Yes, the same platform which hosted the Taliban and Ayatollah deaf to Israel Khomeini, they thought the president crossed the line when he tweeted on Jan 6th, quote, "Remain peaceful, no violence, respect the law, and our great men and women in blue." You may be thinking now that Trump is a populist. You are right. He didn't accept the 2020 elections, and he should have. So should Hillary in 2016, and so too should Congresswoman Pelosi, instead of saying the 2016 election was, quote, hijacked. Quote, hijacked.
Thank you. He was there. This is a young man, Winston Marshall. He's very amusing and makes a lot of good points. So this was, let me show you my Nancy Pelosi moment. I went to this, let's see when they start. It took them a while. So, here.
Man and child to thrive. So thank you.
So this is a Moms Rising Summit.
Thank you, Kristen. Now I'd like to turn it over to the audience. There are 2 microphones. I see, yes. And in the audience, please.
This was a speech, Moms Rising Summit, that was organized by Nancy Pelosi up on Capitol Hill. This is where what they do.
And that's Randy Weber's district, Texas 14, right now, as we're speaking about this.
Yeah, hi, my name is Quenby Wilcox, and my organization is Global Expats. My constituency, if you will, are the 7 million Americans we have living abroad. And I have a kind of comments for everybody, but I'll focus on one, which is to Kristen Rowe Finkbeiner. One of his problems that I've found, I've been working on violence against women as human rights violations for a decade now. And apart from the problems within the courts, which is taking 70% of children who are physically and sexually abused and handing it over to the abusers, and this is creating enormous problems, healthcare problems and psychological problems, and then we don't even get into the psychological cases. But what my research has shown is one of our biggest problems is the alpha dominance feminism that has been produced and was denounced by Betty Friedan in her book, The Second Stage, in '81 into the '90s. And there's this, full employment for women, which, of course, who's taking care of the children? I was a stay-at-home mom for almost 20 years. And once trying to get back into the workforce, there's no place for women. You know, it's all for people who have been there or for the young kids with the PhDs and the MBAs. So what are you doing to attack and bring in what I'm calling the gamma dominance feminism, which really brings the caregivers and, you know, the caring mothers and give them power and give them voices?
Thank you. That was a complicated question I'm still processing, but I want to share a little bit about what's happening with women in the labor force. So right now, women are 50%
Yeah.
of the labor force for the first time in history, and 40%.
So see how she doesn't answer my question. She just goes into her little memorized spiel, and this is what they always do.
Of the
Listen.
primary breadwinners are moms. So moms are juggling an unprecedented number of roles at home and at work at the same time. And we are far...
She's talking about primary breadwinners. I'm talking about opting in homemakers. Different things, see?
We're behind really the rest of the world when it comes to family economic security policies, like access to paid family medical leave after...
Yeah, just promote the agenda of for the working mom. For the working mom. Everything is about for the working woman. Like, homemakers don't work.
New baby arrives or for a health crisis in our family, like access to sick days, which, by the way, every other industrialized nation has in the world, but not us yet. So what we're doing is we're making sure that we are setting the floor for workplace protections. We're making sure that everybody has access to workplace protections that actually moves with the worker and doesn't stay in the workplace. This means
Workplace protection. I mean, this is bullshit. I've been working on labor rights and workers' rights for 17 years as well. All I need is a frickin' lawyer again. Stop with the get some lawyers out there, you know what the hell they're doing, and then we'll clean this up. Let's see, what was it? Because there was the other, Nancy Pelosi. I mean, this was just precious. I'll jump forward on that. It's the 51. That's too much. There it should be.
That is what is possible with toxic stress if we raise awareness and invest in solutions.
Raise awareness and invest in solutions. I mean, you know, like, okay.
I'm going to make sure you all have the last word, but I want to come here to thank you on behalf of our audience for the presentations that you've made, for the leadership you all have provided, and the scientific basis that you give us so that it cannot be ignored.
Scientific basis
I want to be sure
that you
everyone
give
knows
us.
that Congresswoman Robin Kelly is the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus Health Brain Trust. So thank you for that.
See how that works? Get a panel discussion of the science that you have given us. You pick your handpick. I mean, oh my God, if I had a penny for every panel discussion that was going on in Washington, I'd be a wealthy lady. 58,000 nonprofits, and they all have these, well, not all of them. Some of them are too small to have their own, and they go and speak at others. But at least half of them, all they do is give conferences and have people get up on podiums and give speeches. I mean, it is obscene. It's obscene.
Leadership. And just to have, not that there would be clarifications, but augmentations of some of what we have heard here. Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris is from San Francisco. I'm very proud of her. But I was just remembering as she was speaking that once, some years ago, I was visiting a child care center, little 3- and 4-year-olds in one of our areas that is mostly minority. And we were playing and jumping around and all that, crawling around on the floor, playing with blocks. And a balloon popped. And a little girl shouted, "Drop." Imagine 4 years old in a child care center. Her first impact, drop.
See, this is in a poor neighborhood. I mean, when was Nancy Pelosi at something like that in a poor neighborhood and that happened? I don't believe it. I think this is another one of those stories made up. Because this is the modus operandi. They do this, all of them. Oh, everybody does it. It's no big deal. I'm like, yeah, it is.
That just is so, shall we say, eloquent. Because we need any more to know that we cannot, we have to change that situation. So in terms of the research, they have always been claimed that they've always been able to do the research on gun violence. They just hadn't done it. We made some progress with Stephanie Murphy's legislation that Mike Thompson had.
This is Moms Rising Conference. She's talking about gun violence.
And others have been working on for a long time. But it's one thing to pass a bill, it's another thing to fund the initiative. And as Rosa said, that's what we need to have done. But what they have not gone to the next step is, and when
pass a bill and get the funding. That's all Congress does. Pass another bill and another bill and another bill. It doesn't matter. Everything conflicts each other and makes no common sense or logic, and it's all counterproductive. Let's just pass another bill and get some more money.
When we learn this, then that cannot be something that we use as advocacy. So there's something wrong with that picture. This, when you ask the question about the environment, this is a public health panel. Public health, clean air, clean water, food safety are all public health issues. And they are all under assault right now.
Yeah,
so
what do you do?
The public voice has to be heard. Public sentiment is everything, Abraham Lincoln. But as you said, Doctor, you can't speak out about it unless you know about it. So spreading the word is so important. And Kristen,
just
speech for your great leadership. Protecting the Affordable Care Act from so many in this room, Moms Rising, Moms in Action, Little Lobbyists, March of Dimes, so many groups who are here, AAUW, you name all the groups that are in the social media, had 10,000 events.
Yeah, she doesn't mention me. Global expats. In fact, when I got up at the second Q&A, she sent me to the back of the line. She was like, oh, I don't want this woman speaking here.
To protect the Affordable Care Act. So when you thank everyone, 10,000, whether it was town halls, sit-ins, visit the Capitol, district offices, press conferences, you name it, the stories, the personal stories.
Oh, see, thank you so much. You just got to keep coming with these personal stories and come to our town halls and come to our meetings and just come up and see us and tell us about all your pain and suffering.
In 10,000 venues saves the day. So when I say know your power, because it has the power to make all the difference in the world. And that on that environmental issue, the issue of environmental justice, as Nadine was pointing out, is so essential that we address if we're going to be serious about public health, moms surviving childbirth, all of it in nature is connected. I just want to acknowledge that the other day we all were green for Mental Health Day, and that is connected to everything that we are talking about.
Mental Health Day.
Many of our colleagues have been involved in that. I do want to acknowledge, we're going to hear from Rosa momentarily.
It's like Mental Health Day. I keep on saying, you get your wacko crazies out of the picture, and so many people wouldn't need so much help with their mental disorders.
We've been joined by our
prevention
whip, Steny Hoyer. Thank you for being here, Steny.
Oh, Steny Hoyer. Oh, no.
Stand up and wave.
Another one.
And thank you. And Nydia Velasquez, who was the first minority woman to be the chair of a committee in the Congress of the United States, and she will be
the first woman to be the chair of a committee in Congress. I mean, the only thing first, whoa, you get a Nobel Prize.
Again. Alma Adams from North Carolina, who just lives her life around these issues.
No, lives her life around these events. Oh, free food and drink. Believe me, I remember when I was an intern up on Capitol Hill, and I worked there during the, all year long. And during the summer, we'd have a bunch of interns from the state to come up. Now, they came up to party, and I can understand that. I mean, I was the only intern. I'd have like 5 interns to help me in the summertime. I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do with all of this personnel? Like I really don't have any work for them to do. They would usually come up. They would have to do something for, it's not like interns today. Interns today, they actually have to, they do some stuff. Then it was, they'd have to do some report for their school, but they could do anything they want. And the interns, this is before phones, your smartphones, not before telephones. So anyway, I would tell the kids, I would be like, okay, just let me know. And there was always one kid, he was a real brown noser. He was always staying there. He and his sister, they were twins. And so I would be like, okay, just let us know where you are, which conference room, which committee, which luncheon you've gone to crash, or which reception you've gone to crash. Because that's what they do. They go out and look for a reception to go and crash. A lot of people do that up on Capitol Hill. So it was already, something that was going on when I was up there. This is the 80s, beginning of the 80s. And, but it's obscene. It is absolutely obscene. I want a record of all of the money that is being spent just on the food and drink and venue and to put these things together. I mean, you talk about waste. See, this is Elon Musk is just at the tip of the iceberg. And this is, of course, why nobody wants me around. Because, it's going to drain the swamp real bad. So then here we get in again to the lawful rights of mankind, because, let's listen to, this is, the unofficial rules, because Marianne Seigart, I've gone into this in previous videos of how parts of her family, branches of her family, were exterminated in the Nazi Holocaust. And she's just ignoring me because she's too busy promoting the feminist agenda. Here, listen to this.
So do you think men themselves don't know what to do?
Yes, I think they often don't know what to do. I think men mainly don't even know they're doing it. And so I don't blame men for a lot of this. It's much harder for men to notice when they've grown up in a society in which this is so common, so habitual. And I use the analogy of, it's as if men are swimming in a river with a very strong current. And of course, you never feel the current, right? But they see the banks racing past them and they think, oh, wow, I'm a really strong swimmer. And then they see women swimming in the opposite direction against the current and struggling to make headway. And they think, oh, well, they're clearly just not as good at swimming as I am. And that's because they don't notice the current. We notice the current. And so if you open men's eyes to the current, as it were, a lot of them do want to change.
Oh, yes. It's just men need to change. And we notice the current, and then they don't notice the current. Yeah, we notice the current. But the current that I'm noticing is going on a real wacko different direction.
I ordered 200 hand-forged knives to my dorm room and built a Wix website to sell them.
At a conference a few years ago, a man asked me what I did. And I led a portfolio life, so I just rattled off a list. And I said, well, I write a political column for the Independent newspaper. I make radio programs for the BBC. I chair a think tank. I sit on a couple of commercial boards. I'm on the Council of Tate Modern, and I am on the content board of Ofcom, our broadcasting regulator. To which he replied, "Wow, you're a busy little girl." I was about 50, older than our Prime Minister.
And I'm what, 62? What has age got to do with little girl? Yeah, well, yeah, maybe you should have listened to him. Oh, you are a busy girl, aren't you? Yeah, you're spinning your wheels. I think I would say the same thing. This is very British to be like, huh, yeah, aren't you busy? Doing what? Had a good point. But see, this again with the lawful rights of mankind, with Sygart, he brings this Adamsville is a mythical village where the interaction of people, their culture, they're buying and selling. I need tomatoes. You need new shoes, Then you get into, that's the barter system. Then you got lots and lots of goods and services. Well, let's get some coin. That's where you have, money that develops. So those needs, all of that, because then, oh, well, somebody sold me rotten tomatoes and they told me they were good. I want my money back. So the need to establish a legal system, because you're going to have the interaction of people is going to create some discourse, some infighting, and you need somebody to say, well, no, okay, these tomatoes are not good, give them the money back. Or no, these tomatoes are perfectly fine, you can't get your money back. Or it was on somebody's land, somebody else's land, so it's not your tomatoes to sell, whatever. So again, Sygart, I keep on going over this because this is enforcement, newcomers. If somebody comes into the community, well, these are the rules of the game, and you got to abide by the rules if you want to stay in this community. So we have the written laws of the men. These silly men who have gotten together for centuries and centuries and gone and, discussed these issues and come up with, okay, we need a standard set of rules, because if we got different rules all over the place, lots of people are getting really, really pissed off and they're getting violent. So we need some, some sort of justice. A sense of fairness within the community, and so for that we need standard rules. And if somebody disobeys those rules, then they are treated as an outlaw and denied protection and the benefits of being part of the community, which increases your chance of survival. Even in modern societies, try to go living out in the sticks. Particularly today, somebody who's raised in a city and they've got to go out in the sticks and survive. Yeah, they've done some reality shows on that one. Haven't come out too well. So you have to abide by the community rules. But who's making the rules? Is it the Constitution? Is that applicable? Are these international conventions that everybody signed, are those applicable? Well, no. If the community doesn't agree with them, or the courts don't agree with them, then they're making up new rules. This is why we have to have, standardized rules that are applicable for everybody, regardless of, kings, queens, princes, princesses, your common man, everybody. And that's called due process within the courts. So, you know, here's this Marianne Seigart's family. Well, here's her brother. His solution in life.
Hello, I'm William Seeker, and this is my Saga Spaces talk.
Hello and welcome. I'm Sunita Shroff, and I'll be your presenter for this afternoon's Saga Spaces talk. Every one of our live talks here at Saga Spaces is specially created with you in mind.
Okay, let's get on with it.
Well, with hindsight, I think I was about 23, and I went through an incredibly traumatic experience. I was crossing a road called the Cromwell Road in London, which, you know, I don't know whether our viewers know it, but it's a big, big road. It's sort of 3 lanes each way. And I was standing at a red light waiting to cross it with lots of people. And the light finally went red, and the man in front of me started walking across the road, and a car jumped the lights and hit him just like that. And even though it was 40 years ago, I can still see and hear that traumatic incident as I saw this body flying in the air and hitting the tarmac. And luckily, a first aider was standing right next to me, and he pulled me along, and he felt the man's pulse, and there was no pulse. And so he started giving him the kiss of life, and I helped him with the pumping and all of that sort of stuff. And miraculously, this man's pulse started faintly to come back. And the next thing I knew, he was in an ambulance, and the police were taking our statements, and the traffic was rolling all over again. And the only evidence I had of this incredibly traumatic, in fact, the most traumatic incident in my life so far, was that I had blood on my hands. And I went to the pub, as you do, and ordered a large drink to help me process my trauma. But I'd learnt a poem very recently, just before that incident, by Philip Larkin, called Ambulances. And it was all about how you see an ambulance in your street, and you say goodbye for the very last time to one of your next door neighbours as they're taken away, and never to return.
So, oops. You know, when I heard that, I was like, my Lord, yeah, that would be a traumatic experience. Definitely. But, and I have no, I think, you know, there's a lot of storytelling and poems or, you know, music. There's a lot of ways that we can work through our trauma and the pain without suppressing it. And I think that's good. But again, you know, blah, 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 all of this, because this is his wife. Okay, so she is a documentary maker, having it all, feminist again.
I was asked to do Tony Blair because Richard Eyre had been asked to do it, who ran the National Theatre, but didn't have time to because he was running the National Theatre. And basically John Smith had died, and they wanted people to understand who this person was who'd taken over the Labour Party prior to the general election. And Richard Eyre suggested it should be more of a documentary portrait and suggested me. And I'd just had a baby, so rather naively, foolishly, I thought, oh, it'll be quick, it'll be very interesting, just do a little 10-minute film in between breastfeeding. And 3.5 months of filming later, I was basically sitting outside the shadow cabinet room or outside the airport or outside the office. I broke through into his kitchen. It was a fantastically hard thing to do because what I was known for doing, which is portraits, which is why Richard Eyre had suggested me, was not something the Labour Party had understood, and they weren't really.
So again, anybody, you can, this will be posted. You can, you know, learn more about these people. But you know, she's a Canadian. This is Tucker Carlson saying no dual nationals. So what are we going to do with all of these dual nationals? So she's a Canadian married to a Brit. You know, what about their children? But, you know, again, having it all, doing documentaries, another documentary, another documentary, another documentary. I mean, this whole, well, we're raising awareness. Well, raising awareness amongst whom? Because the ruling elite's not listening. They don't care. They're all, everybody, the kings and queens, they're too busy waving from their balcony. The international community, again, they're in competition. They're just social climbing in the West and trying to aid and abet their different factions to create havoc, to take over the West. You know, it depends on what their personal goals are and their nationality and their agendas. So, but all of this raising awareness for what? To what end? What are you going to do? I mean, nobody's paying any attention. Yeah, this is all very interesting, what's on the internet, but let's start seeing some action. This is why Trump won. This is managerialism. Too many chefs spoil the soup. Everybody's blah, blah, blah. And in the meantime, it's like, just like with parents that are out, out partying, well, the kids are running wild, doing whatever they want. So, once again, we're seeing the problems created by the having it all feminists in the workplace. If this woman, if she was dependent on her husband's salary, well, she'd be making sure, she'd be watching all of the problems that are going on in London and all the trauma that's being created, and say, well, like, maybe we should do something than just write poems about it or publish poems about it. So anyway, I don't want to get into, because we're getting into the propaganda model of Chomsky, which I've gone through in previous videos. Today, I really want to focus, or this evening, I'm getting into this morning, on the prep schools, because in all of the different videos I'll be doing, well, actually, maybe I'll leave it here for tonight, and get into the prep schools in the next video. And because then I also do the case study of different people in universities, in the Ivy League colleges. I mean, there's a gray area between the two. Well, where do these people go after they graduate? Into the corporations, into the managerial class, think tanks, nonprofits, get into the publishing business, either by writing books or publishing them, or, advising people in some capacity or other. Distributing them is another part. The HR industry is producing, all of these people are getting into this. The Bretton Woods, all of the people in the IMF, World Bank, UN, who are contributing to the propaganda, because they've all gone woke. The political and legal community in the city, they control the city. It doesn't matter who's in the White House. It's, they're like, oh yeah, whatever. He'll be gone in 4 years, so who cares? And the exploding hospitality industry here. So again, this is the propaganda model by Chomsky. This kind of shows how it works. But here, see, these are all of the different factions. And this is not advancing anybody's rights. It's all infighting. So let's see. It's what we need is to, and this will be through the prep schools, the universities, the Ivy League colleges. You need a new paradigm, a paradigm shift from power and control, because all of the domestic violence experts, everybody, the human rights people, everybody who is in studying violence will explain to you, but it's not about the physical violence, it's about the power and control. And men are more apt and more likely to use physical violence, whereas women are more apt to use psychological violence. So here, hold on. This is, I've already gotten to 2 hours. I wanted to keep it down below that. So yeah, I'll drop off on this. We'll get into this in the next videos and explain, you know, how we need this paradigm shift needs to start with in the schools. I mean, we need to get some people in the courts, but if you want a long-term really shift, this needs to be attacked in the schools. And you know, all of these prep schools have been producing just highly dysfunctional people that have promoted this dysfunctional paradigm that's tearing the country apart. So that'll be it for this evening. And keep safe.